What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Rams Brothers. I'm your host, Dean, and I'm joined, as always, by my brother and the other great host of this show, Nick. The schedule released. Well, it leaked. And we're going to talk about all the details that we've gathered so far because the schedule doesn't officially release until later tonight. But we got some insider scoop and we wanted to share it with you guys. But before we jump into the schedule release, first and most importantly, how are you, my good brother?
I'm good. I got a counterfeit Stafford jersey behind me. That's the mirrored image of the Stafford jersey. But no, I'm good. Things are good. The intro kind of startled me for a second. I forgot we had one and maybe
That's
jump
actually, sorry about that. I hope people are taking into the new intro. That doesn't look like a bad counterfeit jersey. That looks like a good quality counterfeit Stafford jersey, if it is counterfeit.
No, it's real. It's real. It's just the camera makes it look like a mirror mode.
No, I think it looks good. All right, so let's jump into what we've found out so far. So 4 primetime games, 1 international game. We know that international game is going to be against the Jags. We'll go through all the primetime games, what we're dealing with the division, and some other pieces of information that we wanted to share with you guys. So we'll jump into the first one. Rams Texans, week 1, the Rams home opener. So CJ Stroud versus Matthew Stafford. CJ Stroud speaks so highly on Matthew Stafford. He talks about his toughness. He talks about his ability to manipulate guys with his eyes, his drops, his arm angles. They're big fans of each other, long story short. So I think that's going to be a good head-to-head quarterback matchup and one that we haven't seen so far. I remember back to the joint practices last year when both coaches were just raving about the quality of practice and the quality of players and people that each have within the building. So good organizations hitting head-to-head. And I feel like the Rams are probably going to put up more of a fight than what the Chargers did in the playoffs when they had to represent Los Angeles. Nick Caley makes his offensive coordinator debut against his former team. Rams, I think it's the first time that they're starting out at home since 2022 when they lost the Bills coming out of the Super Bowl when they lost 31-10 at home. So hopefully this season is off to a little bit better of a start. You don't have the Lions. You don't have the Eagles. You have a team from the AFC who hopefully you can get your season started on a better note.
Yeah, I mean, a team that won their division but is kind of primed to drop that mantle. They did not look great last year. And I don't think McVay has lost to the Texans in his career.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I would have to look back at it. I think they maybe have played once, but yeah, I'm not sure.
It's like once or twice. But when they did play, I think it was like back in McVay's early tenure. I think it was the season where they started the season off, McVay's first year where they beat the Colts, and the Texans were not good that year. So I think they kind of steamrolled the Texans. So it's not a matchup we see often. It's cool that this is the one that's starting the season. And it's nice to start week 1 at SoFi as well. Last year, I think it was 2 away games, and then our home opener was against San Francisco. So it was a Red Sea. So this will be nice. There should be a lot of Rams fans showing up for week 1 at SoFi. And
so you were right about 2017. Rams beat the Texans in November 33-7, but there was also a 2021 game back in October before that November stretch started. So it was their first win before their win or that streak of losses. I think it was like 4 straight losses in the month of November in 2021 before they went on their rise in December and January, went on to win the Super Bowl. So yeah, I think that one's going to be interesting. You love the head coach matchup, the quarterback matchup. Obviously, Nico Collins, Joe Mixon, they have some fun weapons. It's going to be interesting to see how those two collide. Week 2, we got the Rams and the Titans. So, Titans home opener. This one's going to be, I think, pretty interesting because you got Matthew Stafford against a rookie quarterback, a first-year head coach in Brian Callahan. Like they added a couple of weapons for Cam Ward, who I think we both really liked in the draft, and Elik Ayomanor and Gunnar Helm from Texas to go along with guys like Tyler Lockett and Calvin Ridley. But I think we all remember back to that same situation in November in 2021 when Jeffrey Simmons was just dominant. That was the game, Nick, that you were at. And you were interviewed prior to the game, and you were like, oh, the Rams are going to handle business. And that offensive line could not handle Jeffrey Simmons and the Titans front. So obviously 4 years ago, completely different story as we're here now. But they added players like T'Vondre Sweat. they're going to be a little bit more formidable, but it's good to see a rookie quarterback earlier on in the season than it would be later when he develops a little bit more.
That was going to be my exact thought. But like Cam Ward might be like the guy, might be like a Jaden Daniels type of situation where halfway through the year, everyone's like, oh my God, rookie of the year. Obviously, it's got to be him. But we're getting them early. Home opener, sure, for them, but that doesn't really scare me. I was going to bring up that interview that I had where it was Rangers Titans that we played. And I was like, final prediction, 38-27 Rams. And I was like, we don't even know where I pulled those two numbers from. But shout out to Jake Reiner.
I guess the counterpoint would be that you saw Caleb Williams earlier on in the season last year when the Rams were all banged up, and he was able to take care of business just by dinking and dunking and taking what the defense gave him. So, it's sometimes a rookie quarterback, you're like, I would like to have more film on him so that you can study him throughout the season. Or you want to get him early so that he's not fully acclimated with the offense. So still first overall pick, you're getting Caleb Williams like you did last year, kind of early, same situation within the first few weeks of the season. So that one's definitely going to be interesting. I think that one's probably going to be a win, but we'll see. We'll go through that as we get through everything. So week 3, divisional round rematch, Rams-Eagles. So this one's going to be fun just because it is the divisional round rematch, and the weather is going to be absolutely beautiful in Philadelphia. There's going to be a 0% chance of snow in September in Philadelphia. Most likely, it's going to be one of those earlier East Coast games for the Rams, which I think they tend to thrive in under Sean McVay. But the Eagles are getting back 10 of 11 starters of offensive starters. And the only one that they're not getting back from the Super Bowl offense is Mekhi Becton, who signed with the Chargers. But the Eagles last year, when you watch them the first 4 weeks of the season, obviously they went to Brazil the first week of the season. They struggled a little bit early on. I think they lost their next game coming home from Brazil. They started 2-2, and then they finished absolutely on fire, winning 12 of 13 games. So reigning Super Bowl champs, Rams were the only team that gave them any type of battle early or in the divisional round in the playoffs. So thoughts on that one, Nick?
This isn't their home opener, is it?
I doubt it.
Yeah, they probably, it's possible that this is. I don't know what their schedule's looking like, but if this is a banner-raising game, that's going to make me super upset because I think they're hosting Dallas in week 1. Oh, so. Right. They're hosting Dallas on like Thursday night to start the season. But there's a chance that we're both there. I have a wedding in Jersey on Friday that weekend. So there's a real window where I'll be home where we could both be going to this game, even though I'm always like, I'm never going to go back to an Eagles-Rams game because those fans are so bad. But I don't know. They just won the Super Bowl. Maybe and they beat us on the way. Like our name is etched in their ring. So, maybe they're a little more lenient, but I just hope Sirianni doesn't shave his head after an 0-2 start, and then all of a sudden, the Eagles come out like super hot. It's hard for me to see a world where they're going to decline. So this is our best test to start the season, and this is and we always play down to the Eagles. Like I feel like we never play our best football when we're playing them. So. Hopefully this is a really good game, but, there's a real world. I'm looking at this where it's a 3-0 start and we're like red hot to start the season.
Yeah, well, it's definitely a measuring stick game, 100%. And you know what? Nick Sirianni shaving his head was the best thing to happen in Philadelphia sports history. They were just dominant after the fact. So you should be hoping that Nick Sirianni does not shave his head. But regardless, it's going to be a great rematch. I think a lot of Rams fans want to see what that game would have looked like on an even playing field without the snow, without the angle of the divisional round. So that one's going to be, I think, a great game. I think that one should have been a primetime game, or the Rams and Eagles should have opened up the season against one another. But I digress. Next
I'm
one.
happy that they're not, though.
Sorry, go ahead. No,
I'm happy that they're not, because last year we had to open up against the Lions in Detroit. I would hate to open up the season at Philadelphia. I feel like you're just off to a bad start, but also, you're getting it out of the way in a way.
Yeah, it would be tough to go back to Philadelphia and have to open the season with them raising the banner. That one's, no Rams fan wants to see any of that stuff.
Yeah, let Dallas do that.
Yeah, exactly. Let Dallas have to be tortured with that 30 years without a ring, just like the San Francisco 49ers. Next one, we get to the Colts. So week 4, we're back at home versus the Colts. So the Rams are back at home. I think the 3-0 versus the Colts in the Sean McVay era. So the first one back in 2017, we were at. It was McVay's first game as the Rams head coach. It was an absolute ass kicking, 46-9. The year that the Rams won the Super Bowl, they barely beat Carson Wentz and the Colts in the second game of the season. And then 2023 was Puka's rookie year, and Puka walked them off in overtime. So there's some fun history in the Sean McVay era against the Colts. I think, kind of hopefully you're looking at worst case scenario, 3-1 over this first 4-game stretch.
I mean, worst case scenario, it's 0-4.
No, I'm just saying, hopefully your worst case scenario across all 4 of these first 4 games is 3-1.
Yeah, it does feel like that is the, like, if we're judging entirely off last year, particularly how we finished, then yeah, I mean, I really think that's the case. I also just don't like, it's the Colts. It's not another team like it's like the Packers. Like the first 2 home games are against the Colts and the Texans, teams that like aren't, historic franchises that are going to like travel excessively or just have fans in LA no matter what. So I feel like those are 2 like real home games to start the season. So I think the crowd's going to be big and loud. It's going to be a lot of blue. I also just feel like the Colts, I think if you put any team in the NFC West, and you put them in that division with the Colts, the Texans, the Jags, and I'm missing a team that's also insignificant. They're all the winner of that division. It's just like a terrible, terrible division that just like doesn't, they do not, like, they're not serious. The Colts are not a serious franchise. They picked up Danny Dimes as their backup behind Anthony Richardson. And it's like, oh, competition. Like, we could see Dimes starting this game.
For sure. Yeah. I think Anthony Richardson gave them a pretty good run for their money, though, back in 2023. So I think if he's healthy, he's playing good football. That one could be a little bit of a trap game, tricky matchup. But regardless, the Rams should see themselves in a good position over their first 4 weeks of the season, especially if they're able to steal a win against the Eagles in Philly. So then week 5, the Rams host the Winers on Thursday Night Football. So this will be the first primetime game in the Rams' schedule. So a little bit of stats about the Rams on Thursday Night Football. So he's 8-2, Sean McVay, on Thursday Night Football since taking over in 2017. It includes a 3-1 record at home and a perfect 3-1 record on the road and a perfect 3-0 record at home on Thursday night games. So they had one of those wins was actually against San Francisco last year in the rain game. And Sean McVay is 3-0 in his last 3 games against the same old sorry-ass 49ers. So 49ers, coincidentally, this season have the easiest schedule in football based on 2024 win percentage. They're going to be looking for some revenge. It's always a good matchup. But Thursday Night Football, short week, coming off of a game against the Colts. It's one that Sean McVay has historically handled really well.
It's the Niners. And the fact that we played them last year on Thursday night as well, and it was that game where I think like the final score combination was like under 18 points.
It's 12-6. Yeah.
6. Wow. I was right there. So it wasn't under. I hit it. Exactly. But yeah, I don't think this is a game where anything that like we talk about now, it's not going to like, the 49ers will be where they will be, and we will be where we are. And we're not supposed to, like, if you go by Vegas, we're not supposed to win the division. The Niners are supposed to win the division. So it's probably going to be a battle between us and them. So every one of these games against the Niners is always just like comes down in the last second field goal or something like that. So I just hope we're on the right side of this one, especially it being a Thursday night. I think the edge goes to us.
I would love to see Sean McVay sweep the 49ers in back-to-back years and extend, go to 4 wins in a row, 5 wins in a row. That's got to be the goal, one of the goals for this season. And it's one of the things you have to do to be able to accomplish winning the division in back-to-back seasons is take care of business against San Francisco. But Nick, this is where I think the schedule gets a little bit tricky because the following week, coming off of the Niners on Thursday Night Football, you got a little bit of a longer rest. You got a little bit more time to prepare for this one, but the Rams are going to be traveling to Baltimore in week 6. I think historically, you have, like I mentioned, you have the long week to prepare. You got to travel cross country for a team that I feel like has somewhat had Sean McVay's number in the Sean McVay era. Like you look back to December 10th of 2023, I think that was one of the best games of the 2023 regular season. The Ravens took that late lead, 31-28, and then Stafford marched the Rams right down the field, tied the game 31-31, and it sent the Rams into overtime. And I still think that there was an egregious holding call on the Ravens on that punt return that sealed the win. So it's a tough matchup regardless. The Ravens bolstered up their defense. They added Malachi Starks and Mike Green. They added some offensive line depth to be able to protect Lamar Jackson. But I do feel like they're going to be one of the better teams in the AFC again. And this matchup, going back even to 2019 when the Rams wore those yellow jerseys at home in the Coliseum, it's just not a great feeling when you have to play this team. But again, you go to 2021 when we traveled to Baltimore, Odell Beckham Jr. walks them off, and we were in the building for that one too.
Odell walks them off. Huge asterisk on that game because no Lamar.
True. It was Tyler Huntley.
Yeah, it was Huntley. And that would, even with Huntley, it was a the down all game comeback, score a touchdown, miss the 2-point conversion to go up 3. I think you win by literally a point. That was an amazing game for us to watch. Remember who was Ramsey and somebody else were going at it in the Taylor Rapp were really going at it. We had firsthand experience on that. That was really fun. We were so close. Edgar Allan Poe, the Ravens mascot, each of them were coming up to me to say hello. We're big fans. But the Ravens are regular season heroes. Every year they're atop of the AFC, and then they get to the playoffs and they squander it. But it's just with this regime, with this coaching, with Lamar, they're always going to be a tough out. I feel like the record against the NFC is they have maybe 2 losses. Lamar
they're great. They're great against the NFC. Yeah.
So this is one where this is a really hard 1-2 stretch between San Francisco on Thursday night on a short week, and you have to go into Baltimore after that. I guess it's a long week. You have a elongated bye because
you do. Yeah, you do. But then that's the reason why the bye doesn't come until week 9. But then at the same time, right after that, you got to then travel to London. So
not Tottenham Hotspur, though. Apparently, the game is not going to be played in Tottenham.
Yeah, the Rams have to travel to London, and James Gladstone has a chance to kind of showcase why he belongs as the general manager in the NFL. And Liam Cohn facing his old team, Duval. The weirdest moment in Jacksonville Jaguars history was that 3-second clip. But the last time the Rams were in London was when they dismantled the Cincinnati Bengals. Cooper Kupp went absolutely off. As back in, I think it was 2019. Jared Goff had an incredible game. But Trevor Lawrence is in a prove-it year, very much so. You talk about adding guys like Travis Hunter. You have Brian Thomas Jr. in his second year. Defensively, you got Josh Hines-Allen. You got Eric Armstead. So there's talent on both sides of the ball. You got a new head coach. And there's some former Rams that are actually residing in Jacksonville as of right now. Hunter Long, John Wolford, Austin Trammell, Johnny Munt. So James Gladstone's kind of, picking and choosing to see how he could fill out the bottom half of that roster. Coincidentally, there's a couple of Rams there. So I think that one's going to be really interesting as well.
Liam Cohen, who we kind of ran out of Los Angeles. I brought him in from college, ran him out, and then he gets a job back with Baker, does so good, and then has controversy of leaving the Buccaneers to take this head coaching job. You said it. It's a true prove-it year for Trevor Lawrence. It's you got the number 1 pick. He's going to play wide receiver, and he's also going to play, defensive back potentially. We'll see how that works with Travis Hunter. But Trevor Lawrence has to stun this year. They have to be on a point where they're legitimately battling for the division, or I think it's blow it up time, and he could be somebody that the Rams are looking at next year to bring in a quarterback, honestly. That being said, they're London's team, but they lost in London last year. So
true. To the Jets, right?
Did we play them in London in Goff's first year, or the year before Goff, or am I just making things up?
No, I think we did.
Before that game, I think we were in London, and the Rams started it with a punt return touchdown or something like that. I don't know.
I don't remember. I remember back the 2021 year when Urban Meyer put his arms up because they made a special teams play, and then the Rams just absolutely handled business from there on out. But I'm trying to remember back to a Rams-Jags London game. It could have happened. I'd have to look back.
It was when they were mainly around. irrelevant.
Yeah, yeah. And then the next one we got Saints. So the Rams host the Saints in week 8. So if Derek Carr retires, Tyler Shuck, Jake Hayner, Spencer Rattler, like their current quarterback room is a total mess. Alvin Kamara somehow still remains on the roster. Cam Jordan somehow still remains on the roster. But if they're not one of the worst teams in football, I would be shocked. But we're going to be coming off of a really tough 3-game stretch. So I'm not exactly sure how that one's going to go, but I would assume that the Rams are going to handle business.
I don't think you could run a situation worse than the Saints have been run as a professional football organization. It's like everything you shouldn't do. I mean, they've been in cap hell for years, and then Derek Carr retires, and it's like kind of like a good thing. But then their QB room is like so backwards that you don't even know who their starter is going to be. They're saying it's Shuck, but Rattler has the NFL experience from last year, even though he wasn't really that good in the NFL. To me, this is the Russell Wilson team, but the Giants have them for some reason, and they have Winston. It's like
maybe it's the Aaron Rodgers team.
No, I don't think he would do that.
No?
Maybe he just wants to play. Maybe he just wants to be a starter on a team. He would obviously be a starter here.
Yeah, I mean, maybe. Maybe he goes to Pittsburgh. Maybe he goes to New Orleans. I think those would be the only two.
Unless he's doing the let's wait for someone to go down,
yeah,
and then all of a sudden he's the Miami Dolphins quarterback this year or something.
True. Good point. So I think that stretch is pretty interesting. Colts, Niners, Ravens, Jags, Saints. Like maybe it's not the toughest stretch in the schedule, but I think the Niners and the Ravens in back-to-back weeks and then having to travel to London might be a little bit tricky. So we'll see where they net out. Week 9, got yourself a bye week.
Week 9 is take your wife, fiance, girlfriend out to dinner and be like, there's a bye. We got nothing, let's go pumpkin picking or whatever they say.
Yeah, but then if you're watching fantasy, there's no such thing as a bye week. No, but I think it comes at a good time. It's almost smack dab in the middle of the schedule. I feel like the Rams have had earlier buys in recent years. It has worked out really well for them to, reposition and refocus and reprogram their brains. But I don't know. Everybody loves a bye week that's smack dab in the middle of the season. That's when it's supposed to happen. You're getting off international travel. You're getting off of an East Coast trip, a couple of East Coast trips. So it would be good for them to kind of reset and have that week 9 bye. And then coming off of the bye, Rams at 49ers. So the Rams are going to travel to the stadium where they're going to win the Super Bowl this year to face the 49ers. So only goal at this point, like we mentioned the last time we were talking about the Niners, is to sweep their asses again. Like that, the fans, they will be in our mentions. They will be talking about the 5 rings that they weren't alive to see. But we'll see the 49ers twice this season before we even see the Seattle Seahawks or the Arizona Cardinals. So the divisional emphasis on sweeping the 49ers, taking care of business there, and then just focusing in on Seattle and Arizona. And Arizona, you're getting late, who tends to collapse in December and January. So hopefully those things all kind of work out in the Rams' favor.
It does make me think that Arizona is kind of going to have like an up year, and it's going to come down to us in Arizona at the end, just the way that the schedule is made, and the Niners like maybe fall towards the end, fall early. Still, I don't think they have a deal done with Brock Purdy, right? Yeah, either they're going to take advantage of him, or they're going to like legitimately be like, go test the waters if you want. Honestly, I feel like that is where they are with him. I'm not sure that they're like totally sold on him.
Yeah, they don't have to extend him yet. They really don't. He could play the final year of his rookie deal and see how it all nets out.
I think that's what they're going to try to do. And they're going to be like, look, prove yourself. Like, if you want to win, this is how Tom Brady did it. This is what's sustainable for us. They signed Kittle. So there's no reason why they shouldn't have a deal done with Purdy. But
yeah,
I don't know. I think they're kind of stiflers over there with stuff like they let Jimmy walk. He brought him to the NFC Championship twice and a Super Bowl, and they were like, you're not it. So
it's tough to be a Niners fan, tough to be Brock Purdy. The week after that, though, coming off of the Niners and the bye week, will be the Seahawks. So it's the first time Cooper Kupp is going to be back at SoFi Stadium. So it's the first time you're going to see the Seahawks this season. It's going to be at home. I honestly thought that this one would be the perfect opportunity to kick the season off versus Seattle. Like, considering the storylines behind the Rams' young front versus Sam Darnold, what they did to them twice, not only on Thursday night, but in the wild card round. And then Cooper Kupp and Ernest Jones coming back to SoFi Stadium in a rival's jersey. I feel like that would have made for great week one entertainment. And I thought Seattle had a pretty good draft. Like they didn't bolster up their offensive line enough, despite the early investment in Gray Zabel from North Dakota State. And they're clearly trying to ignite some of that defensive talent and mentality with the Legion of Boom with guys like Nick Amenwari. But who knows what Seattle's going to look like? Maybe you get Jalen Milroe at this point of the season. It's just, they're going to be a big question mark. And I think setting their over-under win total of like 8.5 is probably where they're going to end up.
They drafted a quarterback?
Jalen Milroe.
So I don't like it. If you're like legitimately drafting a quarterback, I don't really consider you like to be a team that's going after it and like hunting for a divisional title in a good division. Maybe if you're the Titans, that is a possibility this year because you're in such a crappy division. But it's just crazy to me that they're the team that picks up Cooper Kupp because they watched him twice a year against us and they did their homework. With all due respect to Cooper Kupp, we love you. I'm literally wearing your Dodo coffee hat right now. I just don't think that I just feel like the gas left in the tank is not as full as you would want it to be. And for them to run that in the combination with Sam Darnold, it just doesn't feel like they're seriously contending. And yeah, I mean, they could be completely out of it by week 11. Yeah, we're seeing their newly drafted quarterback, and maybe that gives them a spark, and maybe it's a reason to be worried about this game. But as of right now, Seattle win 8.5 seems high. I kind of just want to take on them, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, you lose Geno, you lose Metcalf. It's definitely going to be a new look team. You got Cooper Kupp. It's going to be interesting. They're calling the duo of Cooper Kupp and Jackson Smith-Njigba blackjack because of the numbers 10 and 11, which makes me kind of want to puke, but it's not the worst thing. Not bad.
I don't know if I like blackjack. It feels a little racially charged.
Yeah, I know. It's interesting. All right, next one we got. The Bucks.
Wait, hold on.
You got something else?
Is Seattle officially calling them that, or is it the fans?
Fans.
Okay, all right. Okay. Buccaneers at Rams.
Bucks at Rams on Sunday Night Football. So another primetime game. This one was leaked to be on Thanksgiving, which would have been the first time that the Rams played on Thanksgiving since 1975, so 50 years ago. Instead, Baker Mayfield will return to SoFi Stadium in what I would imagine to be one of the tougher games on the Rams' schedule, one of the tougher primetime games for sure. They drafted Emeka Ibuka to pair with Mike Evans, to pair with Chris Godwin. Bucky Irving, if you're not targeting him in fantasy football, then you have no idea what you're doing. The defense has to come prepared because they got a lot of weapons, the Bucks. And, they're well coached. And they're a team, like you look at the Philadelphia Eagles, defensively, they know how to scheme against a high-powered offense. So you got a defensive-minded head coach. You got Baker Mayfield. His trajectory continues to go up. You got offensive talent. You got the ageless wonder and Mike Evans. They're going to be a fun team to watch this year.
Yeah, I agree. I think Rams fans everywhere who went through the Super Bowl and then watched them be terrible the following year, and then Baker was like the only redeemable thing for them to watch. And then they had that like amazing Christmas game where they just torched Russell Wilson with Baker and Liam Cohen. I feel like Rams fans kind of, because they're far enough removed from the Bucks, I feel like they're always kind of cheering for Baker now, which is cool that he just brought fans from every walk of his life now. Like Browns fans obviously are cheering for him. And he's been great. He's been like legitimately, I feel like if the Eagles hit the Bucks, we could be talking about a different situation because for whatever reason they like totally have the Eagles number. I feel like they're just a really good team top to bottom. I think they have a great offense and defense. I think their coach is a little behind the times. I feel like it's kind of tough having a true defensive minded coach in the NFL these days, and they're sticking with him. But I feel like he's probably on the hot seat if they get off to a bad start. But even if they get off to a bad start, like Godwin and Baker together, I think is enough to be like worried about this team.
Yeah, and Evans too. And you know what? It's a division that, typically will only take 9-10 games to win. So I think that one's going to be interesting, but I think they're going to be closer to an 11-12 win team, but we'll see how things shake out. The next week, get another team from that same division, Rams in Carolina. So the Rams got to travel to Carolina. The Panthers were pretty tough down the stretch last year. They took Arizona and Atlanta to overtime and beat both of them. They won 2 of the last 3 games, and there was a game, I think, a few weeks prior where it was against Philly, where Xavier Legette, he had a late catch downfield, like 30, 35 yards downfield, that would have set them up for a field goal to potentially win the game and to beat the Super Bowl champs. It's another game that I really wouldn't take lightly, just because Dave Canales is a good head coach. That a lot of that remains to be seen just based on the roster and win losses so far. But Bryce Young came on late. They added some talent in free agency via the draft. I think they're going to be at least a little bit more fun to watch than they were last year. And it's good to know that Bryce Young overcame some of those things as a young quarterback and is still living in that system and is getting better week to week. But hopefully he plays like shit when we see him.
Bryce Young kind of reminds me of the Goff trajectory. You had the Jeff Fisher coach was so bad and you looked terrible and you're being fed nothing. Then comes the young, hot, offensive-minded coach and you start to try. I mean, Goff turned it around a lot faster under McVay, but I mean, it does feel like the wheels are finally turning. I just don't like that with their high draft pick, they got an offensive weapon when their defense was, I mean, if they had better defense in a lot of those games, they probably would have had like a 6 or 7 win season, but their defense just was not stopping anybody. And you use your top pick to go out and get a wide receiver. That was the only thing where I was like, ooh, I mean, I guess you want to lean into what's working and keep development for your, for Bryce Young. But I
get it from that regard too. I'm looking at how many first overall picks we're going to be playing against. Was CJ Stroud the first overall pick? I think he was.
Jared Goff, you're playing against him.
Yeah, you're playing Cam Ward. You're playing Baker Mayfield. You're
Darnold first? No, Baker.
No, Bryce Young was. You're playing Kyler Murray twice. So you got a lot of top picks that you're going to be facing off against head-to-head. It's going to be interesting. Speaking of Kyler Murray, next you got the Cardinals. So the Rams travel to Arizona. So this is the first time that this team is going to be back in the stadium since beating the Vikings in the wild card round. If everybody remembers, they had to travel to Arizona because of the LA wildfires, and Arizona was really accommodating. So what can the Rams do to pay the Cardinals back for their hospitality? Kick their ass, right?
That was really cool. That was really cool. Of the Cardinals,
but like I think about the Kyler Murray yawn tweet, and I think about some of the things that came out after the first matchup that they had last season, and I still want revenge. I look at that team as a team that falters in December and January. And how about this stat for you? They were 6-4 in their first 10 games last season, and ended the season only winning 2 more games from November 24th on. So 8-9 record. One of their only wins was in the final game of the season against San Francisco, who was totally cooked. So
imagine if you had their win total at over 8.5, and the first 10 games you're 6-4, and you're like, oh, they got it. And then they totally tripped that. I'm just waiting for Kyler to make that step. It's like you just keep waiting and waiting. And you feel like every season starts and you're like, oh, here it is. This is the season where he's like the guy. And it just doesn't happen. It just never happens because it always, it's like he works himself up and then they just slide. And hopefully, we're catching them at the slide, but we'll see. Yeah. I mean, it feels like they could be like, I think Gannon is also a good head coach. And I feel like their organization is slowly changing, but
yeah, I mean, we'll see. They're just such a question mark. They've done it consistently in December and January, year over year over year, and they're just never formidable when it's time for business. And it's just that's what they've done. The next one, Rams host Jared Goff and the Detroit Lions. So we were in the building the last time that the Rams hosted the Lions back in 2021. Jalen Ramsey sealed the game by picking off Jared Goff in his first game back at SoFi Stadium. That overtime loss versus them last year is one that I always wanted back, but it kind of set the tone for what the team was going to look like throughout the entirety of the season when they were healthy. So I expect this one to set the tone for what both teams are going to look like come playoff time.
I can't believe that we're – oh, actually, no. This is not true because we just talked about the game where we beat them. Besides that one season where we beat them in 2021, we go on to win the Super Bowl, we haven't beat the Lions since, which is just crazy because it's the Lions and it's Jared Goff's Lions. I feel like they always play up to us for that exact reason. You know what I mean? Like for Goff, they're always like, sure, we got to step up and beat his former team. But I mean, it feels like the times are changing in Detroit. I feel like they had a 2-year window and they squandered it the year prior in the NFC Championship after being up huge on the Niners and blew it. And then last year, injury bug just like totally killed them and they couldn't beat the Commanders, even though, you know, it just ended up being bad interceptions that kind of took them out of that game. So I lost the offensive coordinator, lost defensive coordinator. That stuff, you know, bites you in the ass. The Eagles last year, and apparently it just doesn't bite you.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if they're as well run of an organization as the Eagles, but we'll see. This time, when we get to this point in the season, we're going to really kind of see what kind of team this is. You know, they were a powerhouse all the way towards, you know, the end of the season when they just lost so many pieces defensively and they just couldn't hold up. So I think that one's going to be really, really good. And that one also, if it's not a primetime game, it's not. I think it should be. So next week, you got to turn around. You got to turn around and then face Seattle in Seattle on Thursday Night Football on a short week. So like we mentioned, you might get Jalen Milroe. I don't like this one just because short week coming off of a Lions game. And, you know, those games are very, very emotional. And you could tell based on their last couple of matchups. I just think that this could be a Seattle team at this point in the season where they have absolutely nothing to lose. And they could be throwing the kitchen sink at you and you could be worn down and beat up. So maybe a little bit scary, but not over the top.
I'm not scared of this. I'm not scared of Seattle at all, just in general. The fact that it's right after a Lions game sucks. But I feel like the only like Goliath or like really scary game, I think, is against the Eagles. And it's so early in the season that like if you lose that one, by the time you get here, you may be able to like truly, you know, get to the point where you're, you know, bowling over these like lesser teams, which I think Seattle is going to be this year. So I don't know. I don't look at the NFC and think of it as like this, like, oh, you have to get past the Lions, you got to get past the Eagles. It's like I'm not really scared of either of those two teams.
Yeah,
and
I mean, we're right in that same tier. Yeah,
and
I agree. I just think like a divisional. I was just going to say divisional round game late in the season, one that you need coming off of a short week. We know McVay's really good in a short week on Thursday Night Football, but that's the only reason why I'm saying that.
Oh yeah, totally. I like outside. The Ravens too. Like I'm thinking of the AFC teams that we're playing. I guess the Ravens are the other Goliath. But it's an AFC game, so if you drop that one, it's not as brutal if you drop, you know, an NFC champion or like an NFC game.
Yeah, and then next one, is this maybe a cupcake? It's definitely one that the Rams are going to have their eyes on just because all Rams fans are going to be watching to see what Atlanta does because the Rams own their 2026 first-round pick. So 2026 first-round pick. Hold on, let's go back to this multi-view. Let's try to make Nick the focal point of this episode now because Dean's camera just passed away. So Atlanta Falcons. So real quick, I think this one's really interesting because, like we mentioned, we own the pick, but then you get a full year of Michael Penix, a quarterback, Kyle Pitts breakout year, Drake London breakout year, Bijan Robinson, RB1 or RB2 in fantasy, heavy focus on defense in the draft. So I would be interested to see what comes out of this team. But I think we're all going to have our eyes on, you know, what they look like all throughout the entire season.
I think there's a real world where we wrap up the division by this point and we're legitimately thinking, like, do we even need to play starters this game? That's how confident I am with the Rams this season. I know it's week 17. It happens. I just don't think our opponents this season are as mighty as they have been in the past, even though we still got the number one schedule. It's just you're getting teams at better times. So I feel like, you know, this could be a time where obviously we want to win this game, but the Rams could also just be like, don't need it.
Yeah. And then you end the season with the Cardinals at Rams, week 18. So like we talked about the Cardinals already. We know that they tend to falter. We saw what they did to the Niners in the final week of the season last year when the Niners were down in the dumps and their season was over. And it was a game that the Cardinals had to try and win to salvage the season. And they did it, but still only 8 wins. So let's go through it, Nick. I'm going to get your schedule prediction. We're going to go one by one. I want to get your win-loss record projection for this season. You ready?
Yep.
All right, let's do it. Let's start with the Texans. So Texans at Rams.
I think that's a win. I think that's a pretty confident win, and it's like welcome back Rams.
Rams at Titans.
I think that's another easy win.
Rams at Eagles.
I'm gonna. It's a loss. I think it's a loss.
All right, so 2-1. Colts at Rams.
Win.
All right, 3-1. Niners at Rams.
Win. I'm gonna say that's a win.
4-1. Rams at Ravens.
Loss.
4-2. Rams at Jags in London.
Weird loss.
4-3.
Yeah.
Saints at Rams.
Win.
5-3. Then the bye week.
Okay.
Rams at Niners.
Win. I think we sweep.
All right, 6-3. Seahawks at Rams.
Win.
7-3. Buccaneers at Rams.
Loss.
All right, so 7-4. Rams at Panthers.
Win.
8-4. Rams at Cardinals.
Win.
9-4. Lions at Rams.
Win.
Damn. 10-4. Rams at Seahawks. Thursday Night Football.
Win.
11-4. Oh, we're going to be talking about the Super Bowl at that point. Rams at Falcons. Monday Night Football.
Win.
And then Cardinals at Rams. Final week of the season.
Win. I think 4 losses this year is where I sit on the season. I don't know which ones they are, but I feel like that is where we should be.
I'm at 12 wins. I have 12 or 13 wins. So one of those games, maybe they're tricky, but I think we're in the exact same headspace. I think we predicted 11 last year. They won 10 in back-to-back seasons, but they were a better team down the stretch. I think you take the next step this year. I think that's what everybody's expecting.
Yeah. To me, they should be their goal should be Super Bowl bound. I think making a Super Bowl is a successful season. Honestly, that's how I look at this team. I think that's how they look at this team. Losing would suck ass, but I think if you get to a Super Bowl, you're at the point where you're like anything can happen, and you should be able to win. Hopefully,
exactly like last year when they almost hosted an NFC Championship game and probably would have beaten the Chiefs in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, probably.
That sucks. All right. Well, we appreciate you guys listening. Thanks, as always. Make sure to like and subscribe. Leave your comments down below. And as always, go Rams.
Go Rams.